The moment Enrico Garcia saw her, the world stopped. Not the romantic kind of tingy, the violent kind. The kind where your heart forgets its next beat, and your lungs refuse the next breath because your brain can't process what your eyes are showing you. Barbara, his ex-wife. The woman who'd walked out of his life 7 months ago with nothing but a suitcase and divorce papers that might as well have been a death certificate. The woman he'd searched for like a man possessed for 3 months before. His consigliere finally convinced him to stop, to let her go, to accept that some things even Enrico Garcia couldn't control. She was crossing Ashland Avenue in the fading January light, head down against the wind that cut through Chicago like a knife through silk. Enrico's black Escalade idled at the red light, engine purring, heat blasting, insulated from the 17-degree cold that had the rest of the city huddled indoors. He saw her profile first, the slope of her nose, the curve of her jaw, the dark hair whipping across her face. Then she turned slightly, adjusting the grocery bag in her arms, and Enrico's entire world tilted on its axis. She was pregnant. Visibly, undeniably, heavily pregnant. The bag slipped. She caught it awkwardly, one hand flying to cradle her rounded belly in that instinctive protective gesture every expectant mother knows. The motion was brief, automatic, but it told Enrico everything he needed to know. 6 months. Maybe 7. His hands tightened on the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. The timeline crashed through his mind like a freight train. 7 months since the divorce. 8 months since the last time they'd... The baby was his. It had to be his. Barbara had reached the opposite sidewalk when she glanced back. Just a casual look, the kind you give to check for traffic. Her eyes swept past the Escalade, then snapped back. Even from 30 feet away, even through tinted windows, Enrico saw the exact moment recognition hit. Her face went white. The grocery bag fell. Apples rolled across the icy concrete. She ran. Merda, Enrico breathed, already throwing the Escalade into park, already shoving the door open into the freezing air. Behind him, horns blared. A taxi swerved. Someone shouted. Enrico didn't care. He was already moving, his long strides eating up the distance as Barbara disappeared down a side street, moving as fast as a heavily pregnant woman could move in cheap boots on icy pavement. "Barbara!" His voice cut through the wind. "Barbara, stop!" She didn't stop. She moved faster, one hand pressed to her belly, the other reaching out to steady herself against a brick wall. She turned down an alley. A mistake, Enrico realized with grim satisfaction. A dead end. He caught up to her at the chain-link fence that marked the alley's terminus. She stood with her back to it, chest heaving, face flushed from exertion and cold. The thin coat she wore, threadbare, insufficient, hung open, revealing the unmistakable swell of pregnancy beneath a faded sweater. Enrico stopped 10 feet away, hands raised in a gesture of peace that felt absurd given who he was, what he was. "Barbara." His voice came out rougher than he'd intended. Just talk to me." "No." Her voice shook, but not with fear. With something fiercer. Desperation. "No, Enrico. You need to leave. Now." "Is it mine?" The question tore out of him before he could stop it. "The baby. Is it mine?" Something flickered. Across her face. Pain, guilt, fear. He couldn't tell. She pressed harder against the fence, as if she could will herself to disappear through it. "It doesn't matter," she whispered. "The hell it doesn't. It doesn't matter because you can't be part of this." The words exploded out of her, raw and ragged. "Don't you understand? Your world, Enrico. Your world kills everything good. Everyone good. I won't let it touch this baby." Enrico felt the words like a blade between his ribs. Because she wasn't wrong. She'd never been wrong about that. "You're living in an alley," he started. "A shelter," she corrected, chin lifting despite the tears now streaming down her face. I have a place. I have jobs. I'm managing. You're 6 months pregnant and you just ran 3 blocks in freezing weather. His voice rose despite himself. You dropped your groceries. When's the last time you ate a real meal? When's the last time you slept somewhere warm? That's not your concern anymore. Like hell. It's not. Enrico took a step forward. Barbara flinched back. The motion, that tiny, instinctive recoil from him, hurt worse than any bullet he'd ever taken. He stopped, forced himself to breathe, to think like the strategist he was, not the desperate man he'd become. Barbara, he said quietly, I'm not asking you to come home. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to let me make sure you're safe. You and... His eyes dropped to her belly. And our child. You don't know it's yours. Don't I? He held her gaze. Look me in the eye and tell me it's not mine. Tell me you were with someone else. Tell me I'm wrong. The silence stretched between them like a physical thing. Barbara's hand moved unconsciously to her stomach, cradling, protecting. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible over the wind. I divorced you to save this baby from your enemies, Enrico. Coming near you defeats the entire purpose. Who? The question came out lethal, controlled. Who's threatening you? No one's... Don't lie to me. Enrico's voice dropped to that dangerous register his soldiers knew meant someone was about to die. You don't hide a pregnancy for 6 months. You don't run. You don't live in a shelter because you're being cautious. Someone found out. Someone's hunting you. Barbara's face crumbled. Her knees buckled. Enrico moved without thinking, closing the distance in 2 strides, catching her before she hit the frozen ground. She was so light. Too light. He could feel every rib through the thin sweater as he lowered them both to the alley floor, his coat spreading beneath her, his arms the only barrier between her and the ice. Barbara, look at me. His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing away tears that kept falling. Who is after you? Her eyes met his, and for the first time since he'd known her, since he'd loved her, married her, lost her, he saw something he'd never seen in Barbara Adams' eyes before. True, bone-deep terror. Antonio Gonzalez, she whispered. The name hit Enrico like a physical blow. Antonio Gonzalez. The man Enrico had destroyed 5 years ago, stripped of territory and respect, left alive only as a warning to others. The man who'd sworn vengeance with his last breath before fleeing Chicago. Antonio, who'd just returned to the city 3 months ago. Antonio, who knew exactly how to hurt Enrico Garcia most. How long? Enrico's voice came out dead, flat. How long has he known? 2 months. He sent flowers to the clinic, with a note. Barbara's breath hitched. It said, "Congratulations on the Garcia bastard. Shame if something happened to it." Enrico's vision went red at the edges. His grip on Barbara tightened involuntarily, before he forced himself to ease up, to breathe, to think. "You should have told me," he said. "So you could start a war?" Barbara shook her head weakly. "So you could paint an even bigger target on this baby's back? I thought if I stayed away, from you if no one could prove the connection, maybe he'd leave us alone." Men like Antonio don't leave things alone, Kirita. They fester. They wait. They strike when you're most vulnerable. Enrico shifted, scooping her into his arms as he stood. She was feather-light, malnourished, exhausted. Rage burned through him. At Antonio, at himself, at the world that had brought her to this. "What are you doing?" Barbara's voice rose in panic. Enrico, put me down. You can't. I can. And I am. He started walking back toward Ashland, toward the Escalade he'd abandoned in the middle of the street. You're coming with me. We're getting you somewhere safe. We're getting you fed. We're getting you looked at by a real doctor, not some clinic that lets Antonio Gonzalez send threatening flowers. I'm not going back to that house. I'm not taking you there. Enrico kicked open the gate at the alley's entrance. I have a place. Secure. Outside the city. No one knows about it except Marco and me. You'll be safe there while I handle Antonio. Handle? Barbara laughed, bitter and breaking. You mean kill? Enrico didn't answer. Because yes, he meant kill. He meant erase Antonio Gonzalez from the face of the earth so thoroughly that even the memory of his name would be ash. But the woman in his arms, the mother of his unborn child, didn't need to hear that right now. The Escalade sat exactly where he'd left it, hazards blinking, driver's door open. Traffic had routed around it. No one had touched it. No one was stupid enough to touch Enrico Garcia's vehicle, even abandoned in the middle of Chicago. He settled Barbara into the passenger seat, cranked the heat to maximum, shrugged out of his suit jacket, and draped it over her shaking form. Enrico. Her hand caught his wrist as he reached for the seatbelt. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me this baby won't grow up the way you did. Promise me it won't inherit your war. Enrico looked at her, really looked. At the dark circles under her eyes, the hollows in her cheeks, the way her hand never left her belly even in sleep. At the evidence of 6 months spent running, hiding, surviving on nothing but love and fear. She'd done this, all of this, to protect their child from becoming him. I promise, he said quietly, and meant it. He closed her door, rounded the Escalade, slid behind the wheel. As he pulled into traffic, Barbara's head lolled against the window, unconsciousness claiming her exhausted body. Enrico drove toward the safe house with one hand on the wheel and the other on his phone, already texting Marco. Found her. She's pregnant. Antonio's been hunting her. Prepare the lake house, and find Antonio Gonzalez. I want to know where he is, who he's with, and what he ate for breakfast. I want him yesterday. The response came back in seconds. On it, boss. How's she doing? Enrico glanced at Barbara's sleeping form, at the rise and fall of her chest, at the belly that held his child. She's alive, he texted back. Barely. Get Dr. Reyes to the lake house within the hour. Tell him to bring everything for a full prenatal workup. Money's no object. Done. Enrico set the phone down, merged onto I-94 heading north. The city lights fell away behind them, replaced by the dark expanse of suburbs, then forest, then the frozen lake that bordered his most private sanctuary. Barbara didn't wake during the 90-minute drive. Didn't wake when he carried her into the house, up the stairs, into the master bedroom with its fireplace already roaring. Marco had prepared everything, as always. Didn't wake when Dr. Reyes arrived with enough medical equipment to stock a small hospital. She woke 3 hours later to find herself in a bed that felt like a cloud, covered in blankets that smelled like cedar and safety, with a fire casting golden light across unfamiliar walls. And Enrico Garcia sitting in a chair by her bedside, watching her with eyes that held everything he'd never been able to say. You stayed, Barbara whispered. I'm not leaving you again, Enrico said. Not ever. Not if it takes the rest of my life to prove you can trust me. Outside, snow began to fall. Inside, a fragile, impossible thing began to grow between them. Something that looked almost like hope. Barbara woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of coffee she absolutely could not have. For a disoriented moment, she forgot where she was. The bed was too soft, the room too warm, the silence too complete. Then memory crashed back. The alley, the collapse, Enrico's arms, the drive to wherever this was. She sat up slowly, one hand instinctively moving to her belly. The baby kicked in response, a reassuring flutter that said still here, still safe. Barbara released a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. The room was stunning in daylight. Exposed wooden beams crossed a vaulted ceiling. The windows overlooked a frozen lake that stretched to a tree line half a mile away. Tasteful furniture in cream and gray. A fireplace that had burned down to embers. Everything spoke of money, but quiet money. The kind that didn't need to announce itself. Nothing like the marble monstrosity Enrico had called home in Chicago. A soft knock interrupted her cataloging. Before Barbara could respond, a woman in her 50s entered carrying a tray. Oatmeal with berries, orange juice, what looked like prenatal vitamins, and, cruelly, a steaming mug of decaf tea. "Good morning, Mrs. Garcia," the woman said warmly. "I'm Teresa. I manage the house. Dr. Reyes left instructions for your breakfast and supplements. He'll be back this afternoon to check on you and the baby." "It's Ms. Adams now," Barbara corrected automatically, then felt immediately petty for it. Teresa's expression didn't change. "Of course, Ms. Adams. Mr. Garcia asked me to let you know he's downstairs when you're ready. No rush. The bathroom is through that door. There are clothes in the closet. That should fit. I took the liberty based on Dr. Reyes's assessment." She set the tray on the nightstand and left before Barbara could formulate a response. Barbara ate mechanically, her mind spinning. Dr. Reyes's assessment, which meant someone had examined her while she was unconscious. The violation of it made her teeth clench, even as the rational part of her brain acknowledged she'd needed medical attention. The clothes in the closet were maternity wear, expensive but simple. Soft fabrics, muted colors. Someone had thought carefully about what a pregnant woman would actually want to wear, not what looked good on a hanger. Barbara selected black leggings and an oversized cashmere sweater, both of which felt like heaven against skin used to threadbare cotton. She caught her reflection in the bathroom mirror and barely recognized herself. When had she gotten so thin? The pregnancy had rounded her belly, but hollowed everywhere else. Cheeks, collarbones, wrists. Her hair hung limp and dull. Dark circles made her eyes look bruised. This is what 6 months of running looks like, she thought. This is what choosing your child over your pride costs. Except now she was here, in Enrico's safe house, wearing Enrico's clothes, eating Enrico's food. All the things she'd sworn she'd never accept again. For the baby, she told herself, just until Antonio's handled. Then you leave. You disappear properly this time. The lie felt thin even in her own mind. Barbara found Enrico in what appeared to be a study. Dark wood, leather chairs, bookshelves filled with volumes that actually looked read. He stood at the window, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian. He wore jeans and a black Henley, casual in a way she'd rarely seen him. It made him look younger, almost like the man she'd fallen in love with, before she'd understood what loving Enrico Garcia actually meant. He turned when she entered, said something sharp into the phone, and disconnected. "You look better," he said. "I look like hell." "Better than yesterday." His eyes traveled over her face with an intensity that made her want to look away. "Teresa said you ate. Good. Dr. Reyes will be here at 2. He wants to do an ultrasound, blood work, the full workup." "I've been getting prenatal care," Barbara said defensively. "The clinic on Roosevelt. The clinic where Antonio sent flowers." The words hung between them like smoke. Barbara's hand moved to her stomach again. That unconscious, protective gesture. "How did he even find out?" she asked quietly. "I was so careful. I used my maiden name. I paid cash. He has people everywhere." Enrico's jaw tightened. "And he's been watching me for months. waiting for an opening. The second you walked into any medical facility in Chicago, you entered a system. Systems can be hacked. Records can be bought. Antonio's many things, but he's not stupid. So I led him right to the baby, just by trying to keep it healthy. The bitter irony of it made Barbara want to scream. You did what any mother would do. Enrico crossed to her, stopped just outside arm's reach. Don't blame yourself for his evil, Barbara. I don't. I blame you. The words came out harsher than she'd intended, but she didn't take them back. Couldn't take them back, because they were true, and they both knew it. Enrico absorbed the hit without flinching. You're right, too. The easy agreement surprised her. The old Enrico, the one she'd divorced, would have gotten defensive, would have justified, would have turned it into an argument about her naivety regarding the world he operated in. Antonio's my mistake, Enrico continued. I should have killed him 5 years ago, instead of just humiliating him. I thought leaving him alive would be a bigger statement. I was wrong. And now you and our child are paying for that error. Our child. He kept saying it, claiming it, as if speaking the words enough times would make them true, would erase the months she'd spent pregnant and alone. What's your plan? Barbara asked. I assume you have one. I'm going to find him. I'm going to remove him as a threat. Permanently. You're going to murder him. I'm going to protect my family. Enrico's voice dropped to that lethal register she remembered too well. Call it whatever you need to call it. And what happens after? Barbara heard her voice rising despite her best efforts. You kill Antonio. Someone from his crew comes after you for revenge. You kill them. Their allies retaliate. It never ends, Enrico. That's why I left. That's why I hid this pregnancy in the first place. Because I won't raise a child in an endless war. Then what do you suggest? For the first time, something like frustration crept into Enrico's controlled facade. I let Antonio live. I negotiate. I tried diplomacy with a man who sent you flowers threatening our unborn baby. I suggest you let me disappear. Give me money if you want to ease your conscience, but let me go. Somewhere Antonio can't find me. Somewhere far from Chicago in your world. No. That's not your decision. The hell it's not. Enrico closed the distance between them in one stride. Barbara's back hit the bookshelf. You're carrying my child, Barbara. My blood. My responsibility. You think I'm letting you run again? You think I'm letting you raise my son or daughter to believe their father abandoned them? You won't be abandoning them. You'll be protecting. By being absent? By being a ghost? By letting my child grow up wondering why Daddy didn't love them enough to fight for them? Enrico's hand slammed into the shelf beside her head, making her jump. I grew up with a father who chose his empire over his family. I watched my mother die because he was too busy consolidating power to notice she was sick. I will not do that to my child. I will not. The raw pain in his voice stopped Barbara's next words cold. She'd known Enrico's father had been brutal, that his mother had died when he was young. But he'd never spoken about it like this. Never let her see the wound that had never healed. Then what? She whispered. What do you want, Enrico? I want you to stay. Here, where you're safe, where the baby's safe. I want you to let me take care of you both while I handle Antonio. And then... He stopped, something uncertain crossing his face. And then we figure out what comes next. Together. We're divorced. Paperwork. He said it dismissively. We can reverse it. Or not. I don't care about the legality, Barbara. I care about you. I care about this. His hand moved to her stomach, hovering but not quite touching. Please, let me do this right. Barbara looked up at him. At the man she'd loved enough to marry, feared enough to leave, and somehow never stopped wanting despite everything. At the gray eyes that had seen too much violence but still somehow held tenderness when they looked at her. At the hands that had killed but trembled now, waiting for permission to touch his own child. 1 month, she heard herself say. I stay 1 month. You handle Antonio. We see a real obstetrician. And then we revisit the conversation about what happens next. 3 months, until the baby comes. 2, until I'm 34 weeks. If I haven't delivered by then, I'll be close enough that I can leave and still be near a good hospital. Barbara. 2 months, Enrico. That's the offer. Take it or I walk out of here right now. They stared at each other, wills clashing silently. Finally, Enrico nodded. 2 months. But you don't walk out of here until Antonio's dealt with. I won't negotiate on your safety. Fine. Barbara slipped sideways, putting distance between them, needing space to breathe. I want updates, on Antonio, on whatever you're planning. I won't be kept in the dark. Agreed. And I want to know where we are. City, address, escape routes if something goes wrong. Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. 90 minutes from Chicago. The house is, under a shell corporation untraceable to me. Nearest neighbor is 2 miles away. There are 3 vehicles in the garage, all gassed and ready. If something happens to me, Marco knows to get you to a safe house in Canada. The efficiency of it, the pre-planning for his own death, made Barbara's chest tight. You've thought about this. I've thought about nothing but keeping you safe since the moment I realized you were gone. Enrico's voice went quiet. I failed you once, Barbara. When I let my world touch you, hurt you, drive you away, I won't fail you again. I won't fail our child. Before Barbara could respond, her stomach chose that moment to audibly growl. Enrico's lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. Teresa made lunch. Come eat. The kitchen was as stunning as the rest of the house. Marble counters, professional appliances, windows overlooking the frozen lake. Teresa had laid out a spread that looked like it could feed 10 people. Grilled chicken, roasted vegetables, quinoa salad, fresh bread, fruit. Barbara's eyes stung unexpectedly. When was the last time she'd seen this much fresh food in one place? Too much? Enrico asked, watching her. No, it's... She swallowed hard. It's perfect. They ate in careful silence, the only sounds the clink of silverware and the crackling fire in the adjoining living room. Barbara tried not to eat too fast, too much, but her body had other ideas. 6 months of subsisting on ramen and whatever food banks provided had left her ravenous. Enrico didn't comment, just quietly refilled her plate when she finished, pushed the water glass closer. The baby, he said finally. Do you know what we're having? I didn't ask. Barbara set down her fork. I couldn't afford the extra ultrasound to find out. The clinic only covers the basics. Something dark crossed Enrico's face. Money. You left because of my money, my power, my world. And then you suffered because you didn't have money. The irony's not lost on me. I didn't suffer. I survived. You're 6 months pregnant, and you weigh less than you did when we met. Enrico's voice went hard. Dr. Reyes said you're malnourished, anemic, and showing early signs of preeclampsia from stress. That's not surviving, Barbara. That's slowly dying while trying to protect someone you love more than yourself. The accuracy of it, the way he'd looked past her pride to see the truth, made tears prick Barbara's eyes. I did what I had to do, she whispered. I know. Enrico reached across the table, his hand covering hers. And now you're letting me do what I have to do. We're protecting this baby together, the way it should have been from the start. Barbara looked at their joined hands, his scarred and calloused from violence. hers thin and work-worn from poverty. Two people who'd loved each other once, destroyed each other after, and somehow ended up here, bound together by the life growing inside her that neither had planned, but both already loved. "I'm still angry at you," she said. "I know. I don't forgive you for the things your world did to us. I don't forgive myself either. I'm not staying permanently. This isn't reconciliation. I'll take whatever you're willing to give me." Enrico's thumb stroked across her knuckles. "Even if it's just 2 months. Even if all you can offer is letting me be present while our child grows. It's more than I deserve." Outside, snow began to fall again, blanketing the world in white silence. Inside, something fragile and complicated settled between them. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe the beginning of something that could become it, if they both survived long enough to see it through. Dr. Reyes arrived precisely at 2, a silver-haired man in his 60s who'd apparently been Enrico's family physician for decades. He set up his equipment in the master bedroom with practiced efficiency: portable ultrasound, blood pressure cuff, various vials and instruments. "Ms. Adams," he said warmly, gesturing to the bed. "Shall we see how this little one is doing?" Barbara positioned herself awkwardly, hyper-aware of Enrico standing in the doorway. "Should he?" "That's up to you," Dr. Reyes said neutrally. "But in my experience, fathers who see their babies early tend to be more invested in the pregnancy. Completely your choice, of course." Barbara looked at Enrico. He hadn't moved, hadn't presumed, just waited for her permission with an expression that somehow managed to be both neutral and desperately hopeful. "You can stay," she said quietly. Enrico crossed to the chair beside the bed and sat. He didn't touch her, didn't crowd her space, but his presence filled the room anyway. Dr. Reyes warmed the ultrasound gel, apologizing for the temperature. "Let's take a look. You said you're approximately 26 weeks. 27, Barbara corrected, based on my last period. The transducer pressed against her belly. Static filled the screen, then shapes, then a heartbeat. Fast and strong, filling the room with its rhythm. Barbara's hand flew to her mouth. She'd heard it before, at the clinic, but it had been through cheap speakers in a room that smelled like disinfectant and despair. Here, in this warm bedroom with snow falling outside, it sounded different. It sounded like hope. "There we are," Dr. Reyes murmured, adjusting the wand. "Beautiful. Heart rate is excellent. Let me get some measurements." Barbara couldn't look away from the screen. The curve of the spine, the flutter of tiny fingers opening and closing, a foot kicking lazily. Her baby. Real. Alive. Growing despite everything she'd put them both through. She heard a sound beside her, something choked and quiet. She turned to find Enrico staring at the monitor with an expression she'd never seen on his face before. Awe. Pure, unguarded awe. His hand had gone to his chest, fingers pressed over his heart, as if trying to keep it from beating out of his ribs. Tears tracked silently down his cheeks. "Enrico?" Barbara whispered. He didn't seem to hear her, couldn't tear his eyes from the screen. "Mr. Garcia," Dr. Reyes said gently. "Would you like to know the sex?" That broke through. Enrico's gaze snapped to Barbara, questioning. She hadn't thought she cared, had convinced herself it didn't matter as long as the baby was healthy. But suddenly, looking at Enrico's face, she wanted to know. Wanted to make this real in a way it hadn't been when she was hiding, running, surviving, alone. Yes, I want to know." Dr. Reyes smiled, angling the transducer. "Let's see if baby cooperates. Yes, there we go. Congratulations. You're having a daughter. A daughter. The word settled into Barbara's chest like a weight and a gift simultaneously. She was going to have a daughter. Enrico's daughter. A little girl who would have his dark hair and her stubborn chin. A little girl who would never know poverty, would never know hunger, would never know what it felt like to be invisible, if Barbara let Enrico be part of her life. "She's perfect," Enrico said hoarsely. "Barbara, she's perfect." "All measurements look excellent," Dr. Reyes continued, oblivious to the emotional earthquake happening beside him. "Growth is right on track. Placenta looks healthy. Amniotic fluid levels are good. Though," he frowned slightly, "your blood pressure is elevated. Not dangerously so, but it concerns me given Ms. Adams' stress levels and nutritional status over the past months." "What do we do?" Enrico asked immediately. "Rest, good nutrition, stress reduction, all things that should be manageable here." Dr. Reyes cleaned the gel from Barbara's stomach. "I'd like to see you weekly for the next month, just to monitor. If the blood pressure doesn't come down, we may need to discuss early delivery options." "No." The word burst from Barbara. "She needs to stay in as long as possible. We won't risk anything," Enrico interrupted. "We'll do whatever keeps you both safest. Weekly appointments. Whatever diet you recommend. If she needs bed rest, she gets bed rest." "I'm not an invalid," Barbara snapped. "No one said you were." Dr. Reyes packed his equipment calmly. "But you are a mother whose body has been under significant strain. Your daughter needs you healthy, Ms. Adams. That means accepting help when it's offered." After the doctor left, Barbara and Enrico sat in loaded silence. The ultrasound image sat on the nightstand. Dr. Reyes had printed several copies. In it, their daughter's profile was clearly visible. The slope of her nose, the curve of her lips, one tiny fist near her face. "A girl," Enrico said finally. "We're having a girl." "I heard. I didn't let myself hope for specifics. I just wanted you both alive. But a daughter. Barbara, we're having a daughter." The wonder in his voice cracked something in Barbara's carefully maintained walls. "Don't get too attached. 2 months, remember. Then I'm reassessing." "Have you thought about names?" The question caught her off guard. No. I didn't want to name her until she was born, until I knew she was safe." "We'll name her together," Enrico said. "When she comes, when you're both safe. I'll make sure you're both safe, Barbara. I swear it. You can't promise that. Not in your world. Then I'll change my world." He said it with such conviction that Barbara almost believed him. "I'll burn it down and rebuild it if that's what it takes. Our daughter will not grow up afraid. She will not grow up running. She will not grow up wondering if her father's choices will get her killed." "Pretty words, Enrico, but you've said pretty words before." "I know." He met her eyes steadily. "So I'll prove it. Not with words, with actions. Every day, for as long as you let me." 3 days passed in strange domesticity. Barbara slept late. 8 meals Teresa prepared with military precision. Walked the property when the weather allowed. Enrico worked from the study, phone constantly to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian or cold English depending on who he was hunting. He didn't share details. Barbara didn't ask. The less she knew about Antonio's whereabouts, the better she could pretend this was normal. Safe. Temporary. But nights were harder. The house had 6 bedrooms. Enrico had given her the master suite and taken one down the hall. The distance should have brought relief. Instead, Barbara found herself lying awake in the too-big bed, hyper-aware of her aloneness, of the silence broken only by wind and the occasional creak of old wood settling. She'd gotten used to fear, used to sleeping with one ear always listening for footsteps that didn't belong, voices that meant danger. Her body didn't know how to relax even in safety. On the fourth night, she gave up on sleep entirely. Wrapped in a robe Teresa had provided, she padded downstairs to find Enrico in the kitchen, making tea. "Can't sleep?" he asked without turning. "How did you know I was there?" "I always know when you're near." He poured a second cup, passed it to her. Chamomile, caffeine-free. He'd remembered. "Nightmares?" "Just awake. My brain won't shut off." They sat at the kitchen island, nursing their tea in comfortable silence. Outside, moonlight turned the frozen lake to silver. Inside, the only light came from the range hood, casting them both in soft shadow. "I found him," Enrico said finally. Barbara's cup froze halfway to her lips. "Antonio?" "He's holed up in Gary, Indiana. Abandoned warehouse he thinks is secure. It's not." Enrico's voice went flat, professional. "I have 3 options. I can go in loud, full team, overwhelming force. I can go in quiet, just me, clean removal. Or I can wait him out, let him make a mistake." "Which are you choosing?" "I don't know." He set down his cup. "The old me would go in loud, send a message, make sure everyone knows what happens when you threaten Enrico Garcia's family. But you didn't want that version of me. You left because of that version of me. I left because violence was all you knew, because you couldn't imagine solving problems any other way. And now I'm trying to imagine another way, and I can't." Frustration bled into Enrico's voice. "He threatened our daughter, Barbara. He sent you flowers with a death threat. He's been hunting you for months, and you want me to..." "What? Talk to him? Negotiate?" "I want you to be smart, strategic. I want you to end this without starting a war that follows our daughter for the rest of her life. There's no way to remove Antonio that doesn't involve killing him." "Then kill him quietly. Disappear him. Make it look like natural causes or like he fled the city. Don't make it a spectacle. Don't make it a declaration." Barbara leaned forward. "You want to be different? Start by being subtle." Enrico studied her for a long moment. "You've thought about this." "I've thought about nothing else since you found me. I know you, Enrico. I know you. Want to make him suffer. Want to make an example. But our daughter doesn't need an example. She needs a father who's still alive when she's born. You're asking me to let him die easy. I'm asking you to let him die quietly. For her sake, for mine." The silence stretched. Finally, Enrico nodded. "Okay. Quiet. No spectacle. In and out, and Antonio disappears like he never came back to Chicago." He paused. "But I'm doing it soon. I won't leave you vulnerable any longer than necessary." "When?" "Tomorrow night. Marco and I will handle it. You'll stay here with Teresa and 2 guards I trust with my life. By dawn, it'll be over." Barbara's hand moved to her stomach, feeling their daughter shift and kick. "Promise me you'll come back." "I promise." "Don't make promises you can't keep." "Barbara." Enrico reached across the island, his hand covering hers over their daughter. "I have every reason in the world to come back now. I'm not leaving you to do this alone again. Not ever." The next evening, Enrico left at sunset. He kissed Barbara's forehead, a chaste, careful gesture that still sent electricity down her spine, and whispered, "Lock the doors. Teresa knows what to do if something goes wrong. I'll call when it's done." Then he was gone, leather jacket and determination, disappearing into the winter darkness. Barbara waited, paced the house like a caged animal, tried to read, tried to sleep, failed at both. At midnight, her phone rang, Enrico's number. "It's done," he said, no preamble. "Antonio's gone, no mess, no witnesses, no connection to me." "You're sure?" "I'm sure. It's over, Barbara. You're safe. Our daughter's safe." Relief hit Barbara so hard she had to sit down. "You're okay? You're not hurt?" "Not a scratch. I'm 30 minutes out. Go to bed. I'll be there soon." But Barbara didn't go to bed. She waited in the living room, curled in the armchair by the window, watching headlights eventually appear on the long driveway. Enrico came in quiet, shrugging, out of his jacket, pulling off his boots. His hands were clean, his clothes unmarked, true to his word, quiet and efficient. He stopped when he saw her. "You should be sleeping. I was waiting for you." Something shifted in his expression. "Barbara, don't." She stood, crossing to him. "Don't say anything. Just... I'm glad you're back. I'm glad you're safe. That's all." They stood there, 2 feet apart, the space between them charged with everything they'd been and everything they might become. Then their daughter kicked hard enough that Barbara gasped, her hand flying to her belly. "She's active tonight," Barbara breathed. "Can I?" Enrico gestured to her stomach. Barbara nodded. His hand settled over hers, large and warm. They waited together, breath held. Then, there, a kick, strong and definite. Their daughter making her presence known. Enrico's eyes went wide. "She's strong. She's a Garcia." Barbara said it without thinking, then froze, realizing what she'd admitted. That their daughter was a Garcia. Would always be a Garcia. No matter how far Barbara ran, no matter how much distance she tried to maintain. Enrico heard it too. His hand pressed more firmly against Barbara's belly, cradling, protecting. "She'll be whatever she wants to be," he said quietly. "Garcia or Adams or something entirely new. As long as she's ours, as long as she's safe, I don't care what name she carries." Barbara looked up at him, at this man who'd killed for her hours ago, who stood now touching their daughter with hands that trembled with tenderness. At the contradiction that was Enrico Garcia, brutal and gentle, lethal and loving. Everything she'd run from and everything she'd never stopped wanting. "Thank you," she whispered. "For tonight, for making it quiet. Thank you for trusting me to come back." The moment hung between them, fragile and full. Then Enrico stepped back, breaking the spell. "You should sleep. You heard Dr. Reyes. Rest is crucial." "Yeah." Barbara couldn't quite make herself move. "Good night, Enrico." "Good night, Barbara." She climbed the stairs slowly, feeling his eyes on her until she disappeared from view. In her room, she pressed her hand to her belly and let herself cry. For relief, for exhaustion, for the complicated mess of feelings that had no name. And for the first time in 6 months, she fell asleep feeling safe. 2 weeks passed. Barbara's blood pressure stabilized. The weekly checkups with Dr. Reyes became reassuring, routine. Her body, given rest and nutrition, began to remember what health felt like. And Enrico. Enrico was everywhere and nowhere. He worked from the study, taking calls that Barbara could hear through closed doors. He ate meals with her, conversation careful and surface level. He asked about the baby, listened to her complaints about swollen ankles and heartburn with an attention that felt almost clinical. But he never pushed, never presumed. Kept that careful distance that was somehow worse than his old intensity. Barbara told herself she was grateful. This was what she'd wanted. Space, autonomy, a relationship based on co-parenting, rather than romance. So why did it feel like loss? She found him one afternoon in the library, surrounded by papers. He looked tired. More tired than she'd seen him even in the worst days of their marriage. "You okay?" she asked from the doorway. Enrico glanced up, surprised. "Fine. Just paperwork." "You're a terrible liar." Barbara crossed to the desk. "What's wrong?" "Nothing that concerns you." "Enrico." She used the tone that had always cut through his deflection. We agreed on honesty. What's going on? He leaned back, rubbing his eyes. Restructuring. With Antonio gone, there's a power vacuum. Other families are circling. I'm handling it. By working yourself to death. By making sure our daughter inherits something other than enemies and debt. Enrico's voice went hard. You asked me to be different. This is me being different. Building something legitimate. Moving money into legal channels. Cutting ties with operations that are too dirty. It's exhausting. It's expensive. And half my people think I've gone soft. But I'm doing it. For her. Barbara stared at him. You're leaving the life. I'm trying to. He laughed, bitter. Turns out it's harder to leave than to enter. Everyone wants a piece. Everyone has leverage. Every severed tie creates a new enemy. You never told me. You never asked. Enrico met her eyes. You said 2 months to figure out what comes next. I'm spending those 2 months building a next that's worth having. A business empire that's mostly legal. A life that won't get our daughter killed before she turns 10. Mostly legal? I'm a realist, Barbara. I can't erase 20 years of violence overnight. But I can shift the balance, reduce exposure, create distance between the family and the dirt. Barbara sank into the chair across from him. Why didn't you do this before? When we were married? Because I didn't know how. Enrico's voice went quiet. And because part of me liked the power, liked the fear, liked being Enrico Garcia, the man nobody crossed. It took losing you to realize that power means nothing if you're alone with it. You're not alone now. Aren't I? He gestured around. You're here because I'm protecting you. The second Antonio was gone, you could have left. But your blood pressure's high and you're almost 30 weeks pregnant, so you're stuck. That's not partnership, Barbara. That's convenience. Is that what you think? That I'm only here because I have to be? Aren't you? Barbara wanted to deny it, wanted to throw his words back in his face. But the truth was more complicated. She was here because of the baby. Because leaving would be dangerous. Because Enrico's resources kept them both safe. But also because some nights, she heard him pacing the hallway. Because she'd caught him reading pregnancy books when he thought she was asleep. Because he'd had the nursery prepared in the room next to hers without asking. Walls painted soft yellow, furniture assembled, everything waiting for a baby he wasn't sure he'd be allowed to raise. I don't know what this is, she admitted. But it's not just convenience. Enrico's expression shifted, hope and wariness mixing. Then what is it? Complicated, messy, 2 people trying to figure out if they can coexist without destroying each other again. And, can we? Barbara looked at him. Really looked. At the exhaustion in his eyes from building them a safer future. At the calluses on his hands from work both violent and legitimate. At the man who'd killed for her and was now trying to change for her. I think... She paused, choosing words carefully. I think we might be able to. If you keep being honest. If you keep showing me who you're trying to become instead of just telling me. And if I fail? If I can't leave it all behind? Then I'll take our daughter, somewhere safe, and you'll be the weekend dad who sends money and visits on holidays. Barbara said it gently but firmly. I won't raise her in your war, Enrico. That boundary doesn't move. I know. He stood, rounding the desk, stopping in front of her chair. Can I show you something? What? Instead of answering, he took her hand and led her upstairs, past her bedroom, to a door at the end of the hall that had been closed since she arrived. Enrico pushed it open. Inside was a nursery that looked like something from a magazine. Cream walls. Wooden crib with delicate mobile of stars and moons. Changing table stocked with supplies. Rocking chair by the window. Shelves already filled with books. A dresser painted soft white. Barbara's hand went to her mouth. "I had Teresa order it all," Enrico said quietly. "I didn't know if you'd want input, so I kept it neutral. Everything can be changed. The color, the furniture, all of it. But I wanted her to have somewhere ready. Somewhere that said she was wanted, expected, loved." Barbara walked into the room slowly, touching the crib's edge, the soft blanket folded inside. "When did you do this?" "The day after the ultrasound. After we knew she was a girl." Enrico leaned against the door frame. "I keep coming in here, imagining what she'll look like, what her cry will sound like. If she'll have your eyes or mine." "Enrico, I know I might not get to use it. I know you might leave and take her somewhere I can only visit. But I needed this room to exist. I needed to prove to myself that I could build something good, something safe, something worthy of her." Barbara turned to face him, tears streaming freely now. "You're trying so hard. It's all I know how to do." His voice cracked. "I can't undo the past. Can't erase the reasons you left. But I can try to be better. Try to be someone our daughter deserves to know. She already deserves to know you." The words came out before Barbara could stop them. "Whatever else is true, you're her father. She should know that, should know you." Enrico crossed the room in 3 strides, dropping to his knees in front of Barbara's chair. His hands framed her belly, gentle and reverent. "I will spend the rest of my life earning that privilege," he said. "I swear it." Barbara's hands covered his. "Then tell me the truth. About your childhood. About why you are the way you are. If we're doing this, if we're trying, I need to understand." Enrico closed his eyes, breath shuddering out. "It's not a good story. I'm not looking for good. I'm looking for real." For a long moment, Barbara thought he'd refuse. Then he stood, offered his hand, led her to the rocking chair. He settled on the floor at her feet, head leaning against her knee in a gesture that spoke of exhaustion and trust in equal measure. And he began to talk. "My father was a monster," Enrico said quietly. "Not in the way people mean when they're being dramatic. Literally, functionally. A man without empathy or mercy. He built an empire on fear, and anyone who showed weakness was eliminated. Including family. Your mother? She got sick when I was 10. Cancer. He refused treatment because it was expensive and she was replaceable. Said she should die at home quietly instead of wasting his money on doctors." Enrico's hands clenched. "She died 6 months later, in pain. Alone except for me. I was holding her hand when she went." Barbara's fingers moved to his hair, stroking gently. "I'm sorry. I had a sister, younger. 7 when our mother died. She cried too much, made too much noise, annoyed my father during business meetings." Enrico's voice went flat, dead. "He sent her to boarding school in Italy. I never saw her again. I don't even know if she's alive. Enrico, I learned early that love was weakness, that caring about people gave them power over you. My father's lesson. Everyone you love is a weapon someone can use against you. So I stopped loving, stopped caring. Built walls so high nothing could reach me. Until me," Barbara whispered. "Until you." He turned to look up at her. "You climbed those walls like they didn't exist. Made me feel things I'd sworn I'd never feel again. And when I married you, part of me was terrified. Because I knew I was giving you the power to destroy me. I never wanted to destroy you. I know. But my father's voice was always there. She'll leave. She'll betray you. she'll use your love against you. And when things got hard, when my world started touching you, I pulled away. Got cold. Pushed you out before you could leave on your own." Enrico's voice cracked. "I destroyed us by trying to protect myself from being destroyed. The ultimate self-fulfilling prophecy." Barbara's tears fell onto his hair. "Why didn't you tell me this when we were married?" "Because I didn't know how. Because admitting it felt like admitting I was my father's son. Weak, broken, incapable of love. But then I lost you. And in losing you, I realized something." "What?" "That my father was wrong. Love isn't weakness. It's the only thing strong enough to change a man." Enrico stood, kneeling in front of her again, hands framing her face. "You changed me, Barbara. Our daughter is changing me. And I'm terrified. And I'm probably going to fail 100 times. But I'm trying. I'm trying so fucking hard to be someone worthy of you both." Barbara leaned forward, pressing her forehead to his. "You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be honest. Present. Trying. I can do that. I am doing that. I know." Barbara pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "And it matters. It all matters." They stayed like that, breathing together in the room prepared for their daughter. Outside, evening fell early the way it did in January, darkness claiming the lake. Inside, in the nursery built on hope, two broken people held each other together. And for the first time since she'd left him, Barbara let herself imagine a future where they were more than co-parents, where they were family. Barbara woke at 3 a.m. to wetness between her thighs and immediate panic. No, not now. Too early. She threw back the covers, fumbling for the lamp. Not blood. Thank God, not blood. Just fluid. Clear. Warm. Her water had broken. At 31 weeks. "Enrico." Her voice came out thin, scared. "Enrico." He burst through the door in seconds, shirtless, gun in hand, scanning for threats. "What's wrong? What?" "My water broke." Barbara heard her voice, shaking. "It's too early. She's too early. We need to get to a hospital. We need—" Enrico was already moving, phone to his ear. "Marco, I need a helicopter to Lutheran General within 15 minutes. Obstetric emergency." A pause. "I don't care what it costs. Make it happen." He crossed to Barbara, helped her sit up. "How long ago?" "Just now. I just woke up." "Enrico, she's only 31 weeks. She's not ready. Her lungs aren't. She's going to be fine." Enrico's voice went calm, controlled. The voice he used in crisis. "Get dressed. I'm calling Dr. Reyes." The next 20 minutes blurred. Teresa appeared with clothes, helped Barbara dress, while Enrico barked orders into his phone. Dr. Reyes's voice came through speaker. "Keep her calm. Monitor for contractions. Lutheran has an excellent NICU. The baby has a good chance at this stage." Good chance, not guarantee. Not she'll be fine. Good chance. Barbara felt the first contraction hit as Enrico carried her to the car. Not painful. Yet, just a tightening. A warning of what was coming. "How far apart?" Enrico asked, buckling her in. That was the first one. Okay, we have time." But his hand shook as he started the engine. They drove to a private airstrip 20 minutes away, helicopter waiting. The pilot loaded Barbara with professional efficiency, while Enrico gave terse instructions. Then they were airborne. Chicago's lights appearing in the distance, growing closer. Another contraction hit. Stronger this time. 7 minutes, Enrico said, checking his watch. They're 7 minutes apart. She's coming. Barbara gripped his hand hard enough to hurt. She's coming too fast. Lutheran's the best. They can stop labor, delay it, give her more time to develop. What if they can't? Barbara's voice broke. What if she's too small? What if her lungs aren't ready? What if... Then we deal with it. Enrico's other hand cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. Together, you, me, and the best NICU in Chicago. Our daughter's a fighter, Barbara. She's yours. She's not giving up without a fight. The helicopter touched down on Lutheran General's helipad at 4:17 a.m. A team waited with a wheelchair, whisking Barbara inside while Enrico handled paperwork with the brutal efficiency of a man who would buy the entire hospital if it meant saving his daughter. Labor and delivery. Room 4. Monitors strapped to Barbara's belly showing their daughter's heartbeat. Fast, but strong. An OB appeared, Dr. Martinez, calm and competent. "Let's see where we are," she said, examining Barbara. A pause. 6 centimeters. This baby's determined. "Can you stop it?" Enrico demanded. "At 31 weeks with ruptured membranes? No. Baby's coming. But we have an excellent NICU team standing by. We'll do everything possible to give her the best start." Another contraction. Barbara screamed. Enrico was at her side instantly, hand gripping hers, voice in her ear. "Breathe. With me. In. Out. In. Out. I can't do this. She's too small. I'm not ready." "You're the strongest person I've ever known. You survived 6 months alone to protect her. You can do this." Hours blurred. Pain. Pressure. Enrico's voice constant, anchoring. Dr. Martinez's calm updates. Nurses adjusting monitors, preparing equipment. At 8:23 a.m., after 4 hours of labor that felt like 4 years, Dr. Martinez said the words Barbara had been dreading and hoping for simultaneously. "She's crowning. Next contraction. Push." Barbara pushed, and pushed, and pushed. And at 8:31 a.m. on a frozen January morning, their daughter entered the world. Tiny, silent, blue. The NICU team swarmed immediately. Barbara caught only a glimpse, impossibly small limbs, a shock of dark hair, skin translucent as paper, before they whisked her away to the warmer, working with controlled urgency. "Why isn't she crying?" Barbara sobbed. "She's supposed to cry. Why isn't she?" Then, a sound. Small, weak, but there. A cry. Their daughter, announcing her presence. Fighting. 3 pounds, 2 ounces, a nurse called out. Apgar 6, 8. Breathing on her own, good muscle tone. She's a fighter. Dr. Martinez finished delivering the placenta, stitching Barbara with practiced hands. She's going to NICU for monitoring. Lungs need support, temperature regulation, but she's holding her own. Better than expected for 31 weeks. "Can I see her?" Barbara begged. "Please, I need to see her." The NICU team wheeled the warmer closer. Inside, surrounded by wires and monitors, lay the smallest person Barbara had ever seen. Tiny chest rising and falling, miniature fists clenched, eyes squeezed shut. Perfect. 5 minutes, the neonatologist said. Then we need to get her upstairs. Enrico's hand found Barbara's. Together they stared at their daughter. "She's so small," Enrico whispered. "She's strong." Barbara touched the warmer's edge, wishing she could hold her. "Look at her fight. She gets that from you. She gets it from both of us." Too soon they wheeled her away. Barbara watched until the NICU team disappeared around a corner, taking their entire world with them. Then she collapsed back against the pillows, exhausted, terrified, overwhelmed. "She's here," she said numbly. "Our daughter's here. She's here." Enrico pressed his lips to Barbara's temple. "And she's alive. And she's fighting. That's all that matters right now." But 3 hours later, everything changed. Barbara had been moved to a recovery room, trying to rest between trips to NICU to stare at their daughter through plastic. Enrico had stepped out to take a call. When he returned, his face was ashen. "What's wrong?" Barbara asked immediately. Marco just called. Enrico's voice was tight. Antonio's not dead. The words didn't make sense. What? The man I killed wasn't Antonio. It was a double. Antonio's been in hiding since I thought I eliminated him. Enrico's hands clenched into fists. He played me, drew me into a trap, made me think the threat was over so I'd lower my guard. But the warehouse. I said what I believed. I was wrong. Enrico crossed to the window, staring out at Chicago's skyline. He's been watching, waiting, and now he knows about the baby, knows she's here, vulnerable. Barbara's blood went cold. He knows we're at this hospital. Marco's already tripling security. 2 men outside this room, 4 in NICU, 6 on the building perimeter. But Barbara... Enrico turned to face her. This changes everything. You and our daughter can't stay in Chicago. It's not safe. I'm not leaving her. The words came out fierce, final. She's in NICU. She might need surgery. She needs me. I know. So we move you both. There's a facility in Geneva, Switzerland, not the lake. Best NICU in Europe. Private. Secure. I can have you there within 12 hours. She's 3 pounds. You want to put her on a plane? I want her alive. Enrico's control finally cracked. Antonio sent flowers threatening her before she was born. What do you think he'll do now that she's here? Now that she's the perfect leverage? He'll take her, Barbara. He'll take her and hurt her just to hurt me. Barbara felt her world tilting. Then you handle it. You find Antonio and you end this for real this time. I will. But I need you safe first. You and her. No. Barbara shook her head. We're not running anymore. I spent 6 months running from your world and it found me anyway. We stay. We fight. And you make sure Antonio Gonzalez never threatens our family again. Barbara, I mean it, Enrico. She met his eyes with steel in hers. No more running. No more hiding. You said you wanted to be different? Prove it. Protect us here. End this here. Show me you can build a safe world instead of just running from a dangerous one. Enrico stared at her. Then slowly he nodded. Okay. We stay. We fight. His jaw set in that dangerous way she remembered. But this ends my way. No more. Quiet. No more subtle. Antonio wanted a war. He's got one. Just promise me one thing. Anything. Our daughter doesn't lose her father before she's old enough to know him. Whatever you do to Antonio, you come back to us. Enrico crossed to her bedside, took her hand. I promise. On her life, on yours, on everything I am. I'm coming back. He kissed her forehead, then left. Barbara sat alone in the too quiet hospital room, listening to monitors beep, feeling her body ache from delivery, thinking about their daughter 3 floors up fighting for every breath, and praying that Enrico kept his promise. Because if he didn't, if Antonio won, their daughter would grow up without a father, just like Enrico had. The cycle he'd sworn to break would continue, unless he broke it now. Barbara spent 48 hours in a fog of fear and hormones. Every 3 hours she made the journey to NICU, sat beside the incubator, whispered to their unnamed daughter through plastic. The babies. Stats improved slowly, breathing better, temperature stable, weight holding at 3 pounds 1 ounce. But Enrico was gone. He called twice, once to say Antonio had been located, once to say the operation was underway. Then silence for 36 hours that aged Barbara a decade. She tried to sleep, failed, tried to pump milk for their daughter, stared at the ceiling and imagined every worst-case scenario. At 2 a.m. on the 3rd night, Enrico walked into her room. He looked like hell. Bruised jaw. Split knuckles. Exhaustion carved into every line of his face. but alive. Barbara burst into tears. "It's done," Enrico said hoarsely. "Antonio's dead. His entire operation's dismantled. There's no one left to come after you. No one left to threaten our family." "You're sure this time?" "I watched him die, Barbara. I made sure. It's over." She should have felt relief. Instead, she felt numb. "What did you do?" she whispered. Enrico sank into the chair beside her bed. "What I had to. What I should have done 5 years ago." "Did you make it loud?" A pause. "Yes." "Did you send a message?" "Yes." "Did you start a war?" "No." Enrico met her eyes. "I ended one. I called a sit-down with every major family in Chicago. Laid out what Antonio had done. Threatened a civilian. Threatened a child. That crosses every line, even in our world. I gave them a choice. Stand with me in eliminating him, or be considered his allies. And they chose you. They chose survival. Antonio died with their blessing. No retaliation, no revenge. Just gone." Barbara processed this. "So you did it your way. I did it the only way that ensures safety. Half measures would have left loose ends. This way everyone knows my family is off limits. Anyone who threatens them dies. No exceptions, no second chances. And the violence, the spectacle, was necessary." Enrico's voice went hard. "I'm sorry if that's not what you wanted to hear. But I'm not sorry I did it. Our daughter sleeps safely tonight, because I was willing to do what needed doing." Barbara knew he was right, hated that he was right. "Did it change you?" she asked quietly. "Going back to that version of yourself?" Enrico considered the question carefully. "I don't think I ever stopped being that version. I just learned to control when and how I use it. Violence isn't my first choice anymore, but it's still a choice I can make. Still a tool in my arsenal." "That's supposed to comfort me?" "It's supposed to be honest." Enrico leaned forward. "You asked me to be different. I'm trying. But different doesn't mean neutered. It means strategic. It means I use violence to protect instead of to dominate. To defend instead of to expand. Our daughter will grow up safe because I'm capable of being dangerous when necessary. And if she asks what you did, when she's old enough to understand, I'll tell her the truth, that her father did terrible things to keep her safe, and then I'll let her decide if that makes me a monster or a protector." Barbara wanted to argue, wanted to say there had to be another way. But sitting there, 3 days postpartum, knowing their daughter was safe because of what Enrico had done, she couldn't quite make the words come. "I want to see her," Enrico said. "Our daughter. Before I shower. Before I do anything else. I need to see her." They walked to NICU together. The nurse on duty recognized them, smiled, gestured to their daughter's incubator. She'd been moved to an open crib, a graduation of sorts. Breathing room air now, no oxygen support. Tiny chest rising and falling steadily. Eyes open, dark and unfocused, staring at nothing and everything. "She's beautiful," Enrico breathed. 3 pounds 4 ounces now, the nurse said. "Eating well, growing. She'll probably be here another month, but she's doing wonderfully for 31 weeks. Enrico reached through the porthole, let his daughter's miniature hand wrap around his finger. The sight of it, his scarred, violent hands cradling her perfect, innocent ones, made Barbara's throat tight. "We need to name her," Barbara said. "I thought you wanted to wait until she was safe." "She is safe. You made sure of it." Barbara touched the crib's edge. "What do you want to call her?" Enrico was quiet for a long moment. "Isabella, after my mother, and Marie, after yours." Barbara's eyes stung. "Isabella, Marie Garcia." Isabella Marie Adams Garcia, Enrico corrected. Hyphenated. Because she's both of us. Both our legacies. The best of what we were and what we're becoming. Isabella Marie Adams Garcia, Barbara repeated. Bella for short. Bella. Enrico smiled for the first time in days. Our little fighter. They stood there, watching their daughter, Isabella, Bella, no longer just the baby, but a person with a name, an identity, a future. And something shifted in the air between them. I don't know what we are, Barbara said quietly. You and me. I don't know if we're co-parents or something more. I don't know if I can forgive everything that happened, but I know I want to try. Want to see if we can build something good for her. That's all I'm asking. A chance to try. Then we try. Slowly. Carefully. No pressure. No expectations. Just try. Enrico's hand found hers over Bella's crib. Deal. They stayed until the nurses shooed them out for shift change. Back in Barbara's room, exhaustion finally claiming them both, Enrico started to head for the door. Stay, Barbara said. He turned. Barbara, not like that. Just stay, in the chair. I don't want to be alone tonight. Enrico grabbed a blanket, settled into the recliner. Within minutes, his breathing evened into sleep. Barbara watched him for a long time. This complicated, violent, tender man who'd killed for her and was trying to change for her. Who'd given their daughter his mother's name. Who'd dismantled an entire criminal enterprise to keep them safe. She didn't know if they could make it work. Didn't know if love was enough to bridge the gap between their worlds. But looking at him now, watching him sleep after days of protecting their family, she thought maybe it was worth finding out. Outside, Chicago slept. Inside, a fragile new family took its first uncertain breaths. 6 weeks later, Barbara stood in the nursery at the lake house, holding Isabella Marie Adams Garcia against her chest. 4 pounds, 12 ounces now. Home at last. Healthy. Thriving. A miracle in miniature. She's asleep, Enrico whispered from the doorway. I know. I just don't want to put her down. Barbara swayed gently, breathing in that perfect baby smell. What if she stops breathing? What if... The monitor's on. Dr. Reyes checked her yesterday. She's fine. Enrico crossed the room, wrapped his arms around them both. You need to sleep too. I will, in a minute. But they stayed like that, the 3 of them, swaying in the lamplight. Outside, March snow fell soft and quiet. Inside, warmth enveloped them like a promise. Finally, reluctantly, Barbara laid Bella in the crib. They stood watching her sleep, this tiny person who'd somehow stitched their broken pieces back together. I have something for you, Enrico said. He led Barbara to the master bedroom, pulled a folder from his desk. I meant to give you this weeks ago, before Bella came early, but then everything got complicated. Barbara opened it. Legal documents. A deed. This house, Enrico said. It's in your name, fully paid. If you ever want to leave me, if we can't make this work, it's yours. You and Bella will always have somewhere safe. Enrico. And this. Another document. Trust fund. 50 million. For Bella. You're the sole trustee until she's 25. I can't touch it. My business can't touch it. It's hers. Protected. Guaranteed. Why are you doing this? Because I want you to stay. Because you choose to. Not because you're trapped. Enrico cupped her face. I love you, Barbara. I never stopped. But I need you to be free to love me back. Free to walk away if I fail you. This is me proving I'm not my father. That I can give without controlling. That I can love without possessing. Barbara felt tears spill over. You're really trying. I'm really trying. I still don't forgive you for everything. The old hurts don't just disappear. I know. I'm still angry sometimes. Still scared your world will hurt us. I know that too. But I love you. The words came out raw, honest. I've loved you this whole time, even when I hated you, even when I ran. I love you, Enrico. He kissed her then, soft, desperate, full of everything they'd been and everything they might become. When they broke apart, both breathless, Barbara laughed shakily. We're a mess. We're a family. Enrico rested his forehead against hers. Messy, complicated, imperfect, but ours. They stood there, holding each other, listening to their daughter breathe through the monitor. Marry me again, Enrico whispered. What? Marry me. Not because of the baby. Not because you're trapped. Because you want to. Because you believe we can make it work. Enrico, we just started trying. I know. So make me wait. Make me prove it. But say you'll consider it. Say there's a possibility of forever. Barbara looked into his eyes. Those gray eyes that had seen too much but still held hope. At the man who'd dismantled his empire to keep her safe. Who'd named their daughter after his mother. Who'd given her freedom and begged her to stay anyway. Ask me again in a year, she said. If we make it a year. If you keep being honest and present and trying. If we build something real instead of just surviving together. Ask me then. Deal. Enrico smiled. I can wait a year. I can wait forever if that's what it takes. 3 months later, summer painted Lake Geneva in gold and green. Bella hit 8 pounds, officially off all preemie restrictions. She smiled. She cooed. She looked at Barbara and Enrico with eyes that were starting to focus, starting to recognize. Barbara found Enrico in the library one afternoon, surrounded by papers. What's this? She asked. Final documents. I'm officially out. Enrico looked up, something like wonder in his expression. The business is restructured, legal, legitimate, real estate, construction, import or export. Nothing that puts Bella at risk, nothing that could blow back on her. You did it. I did it. He stood, crossed to her. I'm not saying I'm a saint now. There's still gray areas, still decisions I make that you might not love. But the war's over, Barbara. I chose family over empire. I chose you both over everything. Barbara wrapped her arms around his neck. I'm proud of you. Yeah? Yeah. She kissed him softly. You kept your promises. You changed. You're becoming someone Bella can be proud to call Dad. And you? Enrico asked quietly. Can you be proud to call me yours? Barbara thought about the question, about the journey they'd taken. From love to loss, to fear, to this fragile growing thing between them. About the man he'd been and the man he was becoming. Ask me, she said. What? Ask me again. The question from 3 months ago. Enrico's eyes widened. Then he dropped to one knee right there in the library, taking her hand. Barbara Adams, love of my life, mother of my child, strongest person I've ever known. Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my days proving I'm worthy of you? Will you build a future with me? Yes. Barbara pulled him up, kissed him hard. Yes. 1,000 times yes. They stood there, holding each other, crying and laughing and kissing. Down the hall, Bella started crying, hungry or wet or just needing her parents. Together, they went to her. Together, they soothed her. Together, they were family. Not perfect. Never perfect. But real. And safe. And whole. 2 years later, on Isabella's 2nd birthday, Barbara stood in the backyard of the lake house watching Enrico push their daughter on the swing set he'd installed last summer. "Higher, Daddy!" Bella shrieked, giggling. "Hold on tight, Principessa!" Barbara's hand moved to her stomach, feeling the flutter of new life. 10 weeks. Still early. But this time, no fear. No running. No hiding. Just joy. Enrico caught her movement, met her eyes across the lawn. She nodded. His face transformed with wonder. He lifted Bella from the swing, whispered something in her ear. She squealed and ran to Barbara. "Mama! Daddy says I'm gonna be a big sister." "That's right, baby." Barbara scooped her up despite the growing weight. "You're going to be the best big sister." Enrico joined them, his arms wrapping around them both. "When?" "October. Fall, baby." He kissed her temple. "Another miracle." "Another Garcia," Bella announced proudly. "Adams Garcia," Barbara corrected gently. "Adams Garcia," Bella repeated, stumbling over the syllables. They stood there in the summer sun, a family of 3 about to become 4. Barbara looked at Enrico. Really looked. At the laugh lines around his eyes, the silver threading his temples, the scars on his hands that held their daughter so carefully, at the man who'd been a monster and chose to become something better, at the man who'd kept every promise. "I love you," she said. "I love you more," Enrico replied. "Not possible," Barbara teased. Bella wiggled between them. "I love you mostest." They laughed, the sound carrying across the water, and for the first time in her life. Barbara felt no fear about tomorrow, because tomorrow Enrico would wake up beside her. Tomorrow their daughters would be safe. Tomorrow they would choose each other again. And the day after that, and the day after that, forever. Not because they had to, because they wanted to. Sometimes the darkest men find the light in the most unexpected places. Sometimes love is messy and complicated and requires choosing each other every single day. Sometimes the greatest redemption comes not from being perfect, but from being willing to change. Enrico Garcia learned all of this when a pregnant woman crossed a Chicago street and changed his entire world. Barbara Adams learned that sometimes the scariest thing you can do is trust the person who once broke you to build you back up. And Isabella Marie Adams Garcia learned, from her very first breath, that she was loved, protected, chosen, every single day. If stories like this one touch something deep inside you, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done in Barbara's position? Could you have given Enrico a second chance? Hit that like button if you believe in redemption, and subscribe to our channel because we share new emotional journeys every single week. These are stories about broken people finding wholeness, about love that refuses to quit, about families built from ashes. Before you go, check out our playlist of similar stories. Tales of mafia bosses finding their hearts, of single mothers finding protection, of love that survives everything the world throws at it. Thank you for being here. Thank you for believing, like we do, that even the most dangerous men can choose to be gentle, that even the most broken hearts can heal. Until next time, remember, everyone deserves a second chance to become who they were always meant to be. Stay safe, stay hopeful, and never stop believing in the power of love to transform even the darkest corners of our world. Good night.